Y'all, we're making apple pie. Come on. Welcome to Highfalutin Low Carb, the random web series where we find and test the best low carb recipes this crazy internet has to offer. Today, we're going to be tackling low carb apple pie. Stay tuned. All right, guys, low carb apple pie. Can it be done? We're going to find out. I also have to give you a disclaimer like I did in the last potato salad battle video. There are no apples in the making of this video. Obviously, it's I guess you could say a clickbait title, but if anybody's looking for a low carb version of an apple pie, they're going to probably type in low carb apple pie. So we're using two different ingredients here today, one of which I have been very excited to try. The first recipe comes to us from Wholesome Yum, and it's a low carb keto apple pie recipe, and this is just using a standard summer yellow squash. And the second recipe comes to us from lowcarbyum.com, and it's Chayote squash mock apple pie. And I have looked for these for a while and finally found some at a local Mexican grocery store, so I'm super excited to try out how that works. Now, before we begin, I just need to give a huge thank you to Thrive Market for sponsoring this video. Thrive Market is an online marketplace on a mission to make healthy living easy and affordable for everybody. You can shop their entire catalog of thousands of name brand products at up to 25 to 50% off traditional retail prices. Now, like a lot of big box discount stores, there is a membership fee to join Thrive Market, but they give you a lot of options. You've got a 1-month option, you've got a 3-month option, or the one that I chose is the year option, and it gets your price down to about $5 a month. And the nice thing is they have a happiness guarantee. If you don't actually save the money that the membership fee costs you, by the end of the year, they'll refund you that money. They also have a give back program that is fantastic. That's where they provide a free membership for everyone they sell. They give a free membership away to a family in need, a first responder, a teacher, somebody who could really benefit from easy, affordable, healthy food. So thank you so much, Thrive Market, for sponsoring this video. If you guys want to support me, go support them. Use the link down here on the screen below, and you can get up to 25% off your first order, and orders over $49 shipped for free. So be sure to go check it out here. It'll also be in the video description below. Thank you, Thrive Market. It's sponsorships like yours that keep channels like mine on the air, so I really appreciate it. All right, let's make some apple pie. Come on. All right, guys, let's get started on our very first recipe. This is the low carb keto apple pie recipe. This is the one that's going to use the traditional yellow squash. And we're going to start off with this by blooming some gelatin. She uses gelatin in her recipe to sort of thicken up the pie filling. She also uses it in her crust. So in some lemon juice, we're just going to bloom some of that gelatin and let that sit there while we start on our other things. And let's get our pot warming up here over medium heat. And we're just going to melt this butter here. And if you've been on this channel any length of time, I know I say it every time, but I need to because we always have a lot of new faces around. I don't give exact measurements for ingredients when I'm cooking because I'm here to test these recipes. These aren't my recipes. This isn't my work. So the people that did develop the recipes, they deserve the traffic. So all of the links are down below in the pinned comment, in the first comment, and here on the screen. So be sure to go check out wholesomeyum.com to find out exactly what we're doing here. So we're just going to let this butter melt, and then we'll come right back. Okay, so our butter has almost melted here. We are going to add to this, she specifically calls for powdered monk fruit erythritol blend. That the granulated doesn't sometimes dissolve quite enough, and you can get a grainy pie filling. So she specifically said for us to use powdered, so that's what we're going to do. And she also has divided more lemon juice, so we're going to throw in a little more lemon juice to this. And I'm actually going to switch to a whisk to make sure we get all of this incorporated. Hold on one moment. Whisk this. You don't want lumps. So we've got our lemon juice, our butter, our powdered erythritol monk fruit blend, and we're going to add some seasonings to this. And this is cinnamon, nutmeg, and no, that's not black pepper. That is ground cardamom. So in this goes. And this is what is going to flavor this squash to taste like apples, apparently. I'm skeptical of both of these recipes, but people rave about both of them. They have very high reviews. So I just had to try them both and see which I thought was the best. To this, we're going to add in our bloomed gelatin and lemon juice. And that lemon is what's probably going to give you that tartness that you get in an apple pie, you know. All right, also going to add in some vanilla. And now we stir in our squash. Get out of the way. So this is, like I said, diced yellow summer squash. And in this goes, stir this, coat it well. And she said that this needs to cook for 30 to 40 minutes on medium, simmering on medium. That seems like an awful long time to me, but she knows what she's doing. And the ratings for this pie show how fantastic it must be. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to let this count down to 30 minutes here. Let this simmer. And then I'm going to clean up and get our ingredients for the crust that we can be doing while this is simmering. So I'll meet you right back here in just a moment. All right? All right, guys, so we are back. We've got about 12 or 13 minutes left for our apples, our summer squash, before that's ready to go. And then, of course, it's all got to cool. So now we're ready to start making this pie crust. And this is enough for a bottom and a top crust. I thought that was an important part of making an apple pie, is the crust. You can also do it as a crumble. All right, so we've got a lot of almond flour from blanched almonds. And I say it all the time, you got to sift this, y'all, because I keep mine in the freezer because it just stays fresher longer. And you get all these lumps and bumps, as you can see. So it just is good. Just sift, y'all. Just do what I tell you to do. We're also going to add to this, again, powdered erythritol sweetener. Oh, but while we're sifting this, I need to bloom this gelatin. There's gelatin in, this is the gelatin just like we used in the filling. She also puts it in the pie crust to sort of hold it together. So she calls for a little bit of water, a couple of teaspoons of water, and our gelatin. We're going to let that bloom, and we're going to add it in at the last step to this, to our finished dough. All right, so just sift all this out. It's going to take a while. This is a bunch of flour. And this is why you sift. Do you see all that? You would never get that out. I know I'm a broken record with that, but I think particularly for nut flours, it is imperative that you sift it out. I lost one. You may have to run your hands through it to mash it through. Break up those lumps. All right, just want to keep this moving because you don't want it to burn. All right, so we've got this sifted out, and from here, we are going to add in a few things, and she says to use a hand mixer to combine all of this. First of those being a little bit of salt. Second being an egg. I'm just going to beat it a little bit. Break it up before we begin. And melted butter. So in all this goes, and now okay, so she did say it was going to be crumbly, and now we're going to add in a little bit of vanilla and our bloomed water and gelatin. This, she said, kind of helps hold the crust together without using something like xanthan gum, okay? So, let's give this a mix. All right, so my oven is preheating, and we've got our dough ready, and we're going to divide this in half, right? Because part of it we're going to press into the pan, and part we're going to roll out and make our thing. So it's got to be a greased or buttered pan. And let's just roughly divide this in half. And we are going to pre-bake this pie shell. All right, that is apparently imperative. So press this in and go up the sides. And this just takes a little time. Let me get this out of the way. This just takes a little time. Okay, so it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but you know, apple pie is a rustic dessert. She specifically said that she did not go all the way up the sides of the pan because that would leave her room to put the top shell on and crimp it around. So I'm going to blind bake this just like this for 10 minutes. Then all of this has to cool for at least 20 minutes. Whew, broke a sweat about it. Has to cool for 20 minutes, and then we're going to come back and assemble the pie. So I'm going to wash up, bake this, and I'll meet you right back here to finish this one, okay? See you in a minute.
A few moments later.
All right, guys, so we are back. Everything is pretty much cooled. It's been about 15, 18 minutes since this came out the oven. Nicely browned. It did retract a little bit. I probably should have gone up a little further on the sides. But it is what it is. Might have a little trouble sealing that off. So I'm going to put this in the back for a minute while we work on the top crust. What we need to do is lightly oil a piece of parchment paper, and then we need to roll out our top piece of dough. Okay? So let's do that now. And I'm going to save this bowl, and we're building our other crust right in the same bowl. Ain't no sense in messing up two of them. So let's see what we can do here. Between two pieces of parchment, let's try to get, I gotta get that off my hand now. That is some buttery dough. Okay, so let's roughly roll this into our 9-inch pan, slightly larger than our pie plate that we already have there. And you know what? I mean, I'm not good at this, to be honest with you. This is not something I'm fantastic at. So that's the whole point of apple pie is rustic. Let it be rustic. Yours is probably going to look a whole lot better than mine does. And I don't feel any shame about it at all. I am going to bring together some of this dough. It got a little thin there on the edges. Rolling out a pie dough is with wheat flour, traditional pie dough, is so much easier than rolling out one that's low carb or made with nut flours. There's no gluten, right? There's no gluten to hold everything together. And even though we've got gelatin in this, beef gelatin, it can be a challenge, for me anyway, to get it to hold together. Is what I mean. You can roll it out. You just kind of make it hard to make it stay together. Okay, let's compare our size. All right, that looks pretty good to me. So here's what we're going to do is fill our pie with this beautiful filling. Y'all, there is a lot of butter in this. And just so you know, she did mention in the recipe that you can use zucchini instead of summer squash, but that she felt that the yellow summer squash, when cooked down, had a more neutral flavor that accepted the apple pie spices better than zucchini. So that's what I did. But I know other people make it with that's not a whole lot of filling, and I used the exact number of squash she said to use. But that's just, you know, the nature of... By the way, that burner was not hot. That's a hot pad right there. So don't think this came off the heat, because she specifically was adamant that none of this can be any hotter than lukewarm while you assemble this pie. And that the crust had to be pre-baked. So, here comes the tricky part. Pull off your parchment. I'm going to save that because we're going to roll out another pie dough here and a little bit. And just use the same one. And then say a little prayer across your fingers. Flip it over onto the pie. Make sure it's where you kind of want it because it ain't coming off. And then this is where you're just going to fix any cracks. You want to seal this to that crust below it. And we're going to have to come and rob some of this crust over here. See, it ain't going to be the prettiest thing in the world, but now, in case I need that, let's just come in and crimp this guy. Seal it down. Okay, so here is our rough looking pie. We're going to cut some slits in it as vent holes. And then this is going to go in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes. We're going to take it out and you're going to either use some foil or one of these pie shields just to protect the edges from getting too brown, and bake it for another 5 to 15 minutes until the pie is fully browned. I'm also, just to make things easier, I'm going to put it on a pie pan like that. So in the oven this goes. I'm going to cook this. We'll be back to set up and prepare for our second recipe using those chayote squash. That's what I'm excited about. So I will meet you right back here in just a bit. All right, in the oven. All right, guys, so let's get started on our second pie. This is the Chayote Squash Mock Apple Pie by our friends over at lowcarbyum.com. Be sure to check out their link here. Whew, it is warm in here today. It's like 95 degrees. So I decided to, fire up the oven to 350 and do all this. It's a little warm. Anyway, so let's start our chayote squash boiling, okay? So this has got to boil until it's fork tender. Well, until it's fork tender, and she said that took her about 10 to 15 minutes. Now, let me give you a couple of tips here. This is a chayote squash, right? It's an ugly little guy. He has a weird, like crimped end, and it has a single seed, almost like an avocado. Apparently that seed is edible, but doesn't taste very good. So I took the seeds out. I've gone ahead and peeled these, and that's what's here. We're going to bring it to a boil. Now, thankfully, a viewer, I put up some information about, I showed a picture on my Instagram account. You can follow me over there. Of the chayote squash. I went to a beautiful Mexican grocery store. The produce and meat were just fabulous, and they had 2 kinds of chayote squash. Anyway, she said, wear gloves because it will make your hands peel. And I sort of get that when I handle raw zucchini sometimes. I'll have a weird peeling sensation, but go look up pictures, Google pictures of chayote squash hand peeling, and you'll see what I mean. It's harmless, apparently. It's just kind of unsightly. So thank you to my viewers for letting me know about that. So obviously we're going to start here with the crust, and we're going to start with sifting all this. This is a dirty bowl. This is the bowl we made the last crust in. I usually don't ever do that, but the ingredients are so incredibly similar that it's not going to affect anything. So this is a combination of almond flour and coconut flour. And it's an unsweetened crust. There's no sweetener in this crust. And she also added psyllium seeds. This is just a small amount of psyllium husk, not psyllium seeds. I guess it is the husk of the seed. Psyllium seed husk. My one caveat, she requested that it be whole, and I did not have whole. I thought I did. This is the ground psyllium husk powder. It's the same product. It's just been ground up. She's hopeful that this helps the dough stay together, as it were. So we're going to go ahead and sift in our salt as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and start assembling this dough. To our flour mixture here, we are going to add some eggs. I like to beat them first just to get a head start on the mixing. And some melted butter. And we're going to split it into 2. just like the other one, for a top and a bottom crust. She calls for actually rolling both of these out and not pressing it in the pan. So that's what I'm going to do. I try to follow recipes exactly as written. This is obviously going to be a much thinner dough than the other one because we're rolling it out. So, oops, we still got some of this dough left behind. Get off there. This is going to be our bottom, and we'll do this one for the top.
A few moments later.
This boiled for almost 15 minutes. I realized she cut hers in slices and I did mine in cubes, so it probably took a little less time. But they're fork tender, and that looks like a lot of filling for our little pie. So we're almost there. I promise it's been a long video, but we are almost there. So let's get our filling ready. This is going to be powdered monk fruit. I'm going to use the erythritol monk fruit blend. I'm going to use the same just to avoid any discrepancies in that being an alternate. I just want to make sure that we use the same sweetener in both pies is what I'm getting at. So add that in, and in goes your beautiful spices. This is cinnamon, ginger, and nutmeg. And now some lemon juice. Again, adds that tart brightness that makes it feel like a fresh apple, I think. Just keep this stirring. And now our next ingredient is one that I am very wary of. I'm just going to be straight up honest with you. And this is a lot of liquid. I really drained these well, and there's a lot of liquid in that. But this is xanthan gum, and I've used small amounts of xanthan gum, like a half teaspoon in recipes. This is a large amount. I'm just going to tell you, this is a tablespoon of xanthan gum. So I am a little bit scared of that, to be very honest, because if you've ever used it, you know it can feel slimy. But that's holding her pie together. And then the last thing is some apple extract. And this is from that, if you watched my banana bread battle, it's up in one of these corners, I'll post it. Then you know that they have a delicious natural banana extract that tastes just like real bananas. And the same with the apple. This is the Olive Nation natural extract, apple extract. It's not a chemical flavor, it's an extract of an apple. So I'll put the link down below if you want to try it. And you can see, boy, all that liquid already is absorbed by that xanthan gum. So we're just going to put this in our filling, in our pie shell, and she did not say to pre-bake this. That is not part of the instructions. I would have thought you needed to, so that's another difference in that recipe from this one. So I'm just going to put as much of this in here. It looks beautiful. I'm so excited to try this chayote squash. It's something I've wanted to try for a long time, and finally got the opportunity to do it. You can find it apparently in most any Mexican grocery store or an Asian grocery store. Some people even say they could find it at their Whole Foods. I did not see it at mine, but it gives you an opportunity to go out and explore your community if you're able to do that right now and where you live, and maybe shop at some places you would have never considered before. All right, let's get this back over here. This also did not say to cool it. It did not say to cool the filling. So that looks good. It smells fantastic. The apple flavoring is really, it said it's optional, but I really wanted to try it. So that's what we're doing. Now we're going to dot the top of this with small pats of butter. All right, so the vocabulary word of the day is definitely rustic. Use it in a sentence. Look at Wesley's rustic apple pies. They look a mess, but I hope they taste good. So just like the other one, we're going to give this some slits. I really don't need to because I've got enough cracks in the top of it that it's going to vent just fine. But she goes an extra step here and does a little egg wash with a brush. She also sprinkles just a little bit of granulated erythritol sweetener, monk fruit sweetener, whatever you're using, on top to give it that kind of a crunch a little bit. So I'm going to do that a little bit too. Because remember, our pie crust was not sweetened. All right. So here's this beautiful guy. And it's going in the same temperature oven, 350, and that's going to go in for, she said, half an hour to 35 minutes. She took hers out at 30 minutes. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put my little pie shield on now. She didn't give explicit instructions about that, but generally, I know these almond flour crusts burn, especially the coconut flour one. So, this goes in the oven. I will meet you back here. Obviously, these have to cool for several hours before they can be cut, before they hold together. So you may see some difference in lighting because I'm going to come back in about an hour or two when these are still warm but have solidified to the touch, and we're going to taste them. All right? So I'll meet you back here in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
3 hours later.
All right, guys, so we are back. It's been about 2.5 to 3 hours. Both of our pies are cooled, and look how gorgeous they look. Okay, first of all, let's start with the first one. This is the low carb keto apple pie recipe. It's cooled, and let me get another thing. It turned out beautifully, if I do say so myself. Because of the bright light, it looks like that the crust is a little extra brown around the top, around the ends, and it is. But you know, I struggle with crusts, so you're gonna have to forgive me. All right, the other one came out about an hour and a half ago, and this is the Chayote squash mock apple pie, and it is beautiful too. Now, I know you can't see it, but if I hold it up, like, this is a much taller pie, had more ingredients and filling than this pie. That is a little bit thinner, I guess you could say. So let's taste this and see what happens. Now, I've looked all over this kitchen for my pie server, and I cannot find my pie server, so we're using a knife, and I hate that. Before we begin, let's talk about nutrition, okay? That's the most important part of this. This first recipe here is the low carb keto apple pie recipe by Wholesome Yum, and this is the one with the regular squash in it, summer squash. And this is, she says, makes 12 servings. All right, so for one slice of it, if you cut this into 12 slices, one slice of this is 363 calories. You got 33 grams of fat. You've got 10 grams of protein. You've got 12 grams of total carbs. You've got 4 grams of fiber, and that gives you 8 grams of net carbs per slice, okay? Now, this one is going to be a little bit lower, and this is the second recipe, Chayote Squash Mock Apple Pie by lowcarbyum.com. And this is 16 servings, and obviously there's more in this pie. I tried to follow the ingredient recipes exactly as written. So there's more in this pie, so you're going to have a smaller slice. But if you make 16 slices, one slice of this is 187 calories. You've got 2 grams of protein. You've got 16.7 grams of fat. You've got total carbs of 6.6 grams. And you've got fiber at 2.9 grams, which means you have 3.7 grams of net carbs. So when it all comes down to it, the yellow squash is about double the net carbs of the Chayote squash, which is why people look for the Chayote squash, right? So let's just taste this. Again, I wish I had a pie server because I'm going to tear these up. Doggone it. All right, this looks beautiful. Let's come in here, and hopefully I grease this well enough. And the first piece is going to tear up bad. Oh, it looks good, but everybody knows that first piece of pie just comes out of there terribly. This is the one we actually, oh Lord, I have made a full on mess of this. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to have to pull out a beauty slice to get a picture with for the thumbnail, but I ain't sure that's it, but it sure looks good. All right, we're going to put this over here and let's cut our second pie. I need a napkin, hold on. I was concerned about the ability of the crust. That was my main concern, is the ability of the crust to hold up to all this liquid apple. And this guy here bubbled up butter everywhere. So this seems like a natural seam. We're going to come in here with this. Oh, that cut well. This is the one we're trying to get. Ooh, this is the Chayote. This is the second one. It's just hard to serve that first piece of pie, and you can't do it with a darn knife, but that's all I got right now. So, y'all, that looks, the whole house smells like apple pie. I'm just going to be honest with you. Even without the apple seasoning, I'm pretty sure these would taste like apple pie. Okay. They look a hot mess because, you know, those are the sacrificial slices. Your first one's going to be bad, especially if you ain't got a pie knife. So this is the low carb keto apple pie recipe by Wholesome Yum. And let's just see what it looks like. Now, granted, you're probably going to serve this with a little tiny little sliver of ice cream or some heavy cream. It's going to be great. All right. I would have never, ever, ever, ever thought that was yellow summer squash. I would think this was a poorly constructed, because poorly constructed, meaning my cutting it and serving it. I would have thought that was a poorly served piece of apple pie. Y'all. That tastes like apple pie. That tastes like apple pie. And it didn't even have that expensive apple pie extract. This is our second one. This is the Chayote Squash Mock Apple Pie by lowcarbyum.com. I was concerned that the crust wouldn't bake, but this is the one I've been wanting to figure out and play with, because so many people talk about the Chayote. All right. It also has the apple pie flavoring. That is really good. That is really, really good. As I mentioned, I definitely taste the full tablespoon of xanthan gum. It has a very slimy texture that is not reminiscent of apples. The crust is really nice. I like the crust a lot. I would have thought I would have liked this one, the other crust, better, but this crust is great. It's good. I'm going to say it. I didn't really care for the apple flavoring. I didn't really care for the apple extract. I don't think it needed it. This pie, the original one by Wholesome Yum. Now granted, with the yellow squash, it has a higher carb count, almost double. But I would love to try this again with the Chayote in place of the summer squash, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you serve this to my daddy or somebody in your family and said, this is apple pie, they'd be like, yeah, of course it is. It's apple pie. And this didn't even have the super expensive apple pie flavoring in it. So, I mean, there you go. There you have it. Low carb apple pie. Can it be done? Apparently so. Both of these were really super tasty, but if I had to do this all again, I would go with the yellow summer squash and this crust. So there you have it, folks. Low carb apple pie. Can it be done? Yes. These are both great options, and I kind of wanted to experiment with both of these recipes and choose my crust of choice and my filling of choice and work a little bit more with this chayote squash, because I do think it is great and it is half the carbs of the yellow squash. So as I say every time, these videos are a way of me maintaining my low carb way of eating, and looking at the end of that camera as often as I can helps keep me honest. So I appreciate that you have come along for the journey. If you're new here, I ask that you hit the subscribe button. This is what we do here. We test low carb and keto recipes and we determine a winner. If you are already a subscriber here, welcome back. Be sure you hit the bell button down below. That'll let you know just as soon as I release a new video, and you'll be the first to know. So also I want to thank my partner here and sponsor, Thrive Market. You guys have been wonderful to me, and they're doing a great thing for the low carb and keto community. So if you guys want to support me, go support them. Use the link down here on the screen. It'll be in the video description below and in the pinned comment below. And you can take advantage of their savings. Like I said, sponsorships like yours are what keeps channels like mine on the air, and I really appreciate it. Otherwise, if you don't know what Patreon is, I'm going to list all my Patreon sponsors here on the screen. Think of Patreon like the tip jar for the internet. It allows people like you who enjoy what people like me are doing here on the internet, and we can and you can give $1 or $2 a month and just sort of keep things on the tracks, as it were. So I really appreciate that. I'm gonna list all of them here, and these are some super special people. We do a lot of other fun things over there. Also check out my Instagram and my Facebook, because I do a lot more there than I'm able to do here on YouTube. Otherwise, I love you guys. I'll see you very soon for our next video.